I am
Ah,
recording.
It's starting.
You're
got
being
it.
monitored.
Okay. If I have to. Excuse me. Choke down a sandwich before I got on here. Apologies.
Same here.
Eh,
Panera bread.
it's a co-op, but it's pretty similar. Like just like fresher ingredients than say the grocery store. One of those pre-made sandwiches at a grocery store.
Yeah.
How'd you make? Quit messing with daddy's things. He said no.
Oh,
He's gonna keep messing with my shit.
he's an opinionated little bastard.
He just wants to be pet. You can't pull him. Ooh. Where you going? Where you coming? So you guys go to college? You guys are
hmm
Yes.
what is the median age of all this group?
I'm 19.
19.
Same here.
Damn. I'm
There's, I
old.
think, like one graduate student. Other than that, it's like, yeah, 19 to 24.
Okay. I am 36 for reference. I'm feeling my age more and
Hey,
more as the years and as the week goes by, to be quite honest.
well, you're a good 20 years younger than most of the guest speakers. So,
You get like old folks like Neil Adams.
yeah. Like old fogies no one really cares about.
Neil Adams
Yeah.
is fun. He's at least was like a kind of a crank. He used to talk to Coast to Coast with Art Bell. You know that show?
No, but I'm gonna say wow anyway.
Okay, thank you.
That's just the thing you do.
You can say I don't know what that is, and I will explain it to you.
Oh, please do.
It was a crank, well, not a crank show, but it was a show people who believed in conspiracy theories and things back when that was very interesting and not awful.
Concerning. Yeah.
Concerning, yeah. Like Alex Jones got started as a caller on Coast to Coast with Art Bell, and then he became, the lovable man we all know today. But Neil Adams was an old Batman artist and writer who used to, I guess, call in also. And I saw him once at a convention. I don't care if this is recorded. I've talked about it before. Also, I think he's dead.
Oh,
Um, so I saw him once at a convention in Calgary, Canada. I didn't know it was him. All I knew was that we were there before the show opened. I had to go to the bathroom, and so did he. We were next stall to stall doing our thing. I got up, finished, and was like, oh boy, all right, gotta get ready for this big convention. Washing my hands. Watch this man go right out from the door to the bathroom door to the main door. No washing of his hands. I know we both did what we did in there. So I followed his ass. I was like, who are you? You're here. You work here. You're here to work and you're not washing your hands. After you poop, I followed him to his thing and it was Neil Adams. And I was like, oh my God. I tell it to my friend and she tells me, oh yeah, he's like a crank who was on like Coast to Coast. And so if he probably believes in little things like he doesn't believe in germs, I bet, while he's drawing Batman doing, kicking another homeless guy in the face or something.
All right, and with that, let's start. Yeah.
yay.
Doesn't matter. He passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Who cares?
I'll probably cut all this shit. All right, so I've got exactly 5 pre-written questions, and then I don't know, probably like a few people will filter in while I'm doing these, and then we can just talk until we're done talking.
Okay.
First, I'm gonna go probably like most to least professional sounding, starting with a question from Michael, reading this off here. When I try to design cartoons, I always feel like my designs are too simple. How do you create designs that are simple but still engaging?
Hmm. That's a good one. I don't for me, it is about repetition. I already showed you my owls and falcons I did, but right next to it, you see a little frog character that I'm sort of drawing over and over in different ways, in different formats. Now, he's not quite a new character I've done before. He's kind of based off an old frog character I had when I was a kid. But I've drawn different frog characters over and over again, and to me, it's about like learning to love drawing them a lot, because that's what you're going to do as a cartoonist. If that's what this, you said cartoon, and I'm assuming you mean comics and stuff like this, because this is a comic club. But to get that cartoony style, you got to find, you're going to have to draw a lot and learn to simplify designs and lines and stuff like this. Repetition is something that helps a lot for me. It just helps me. So here's another page before that is just more of the same frog in different forms, in different ways, and stuff like this. That's how my brain can find an interesting character, or just I take a character and find all the different poses and things for him. It's repetition, constantly practicing and doing it, and you can do that by making the comic and letting the art and yourself change as the comic itself changes. And you can see that in a lot of like art, like long running series, like the Peanuts from day one does not look the same as Peanuts from the final, because he's drawn it over and over and over again. So just have to be willing to let yourself change, and let the characters change as you continue drawing that character in a way that makes you happy. I did that for Anime Club, which is a bigger thing. Maybe people know. For the first 3 parts, they had one style, and then but when I was getting ready to sort of do part 4, I sat down and drew each character over and over again, trying to find like what parts of it make them that character. I got rid of like Mort had big Coke bottle glasses, but I just drew instead big circle because that was easier to draw. And he still had big glasses. I could make them Coke bottle glasses if I wanted to. With cartooning, you can actually just fuck around and you never have to find out, because that's like another aspect of cartooning is like the drawing can be just as funny and fun, as well as like, the writing if you want to do that too. But a lot of more popular cartoons and stuff are mostly for kids, and people don't care if that shit's good. It's just for kids, or it's for the adult parents of children.
All right. Next question. This one's pretty basic, but worth asking.
Mhm.
Who are some of your inspirations, just in general?
Gary Larson from The Far Side definitely is affected me a lot as a kid. We had a number of Far Side books. I don't know where or how, but that's just what we had, and I loved reading them. I loved not getting them and being like, "What does this mean?" Like I was, an 8-year-old kid reading the most esoteric joke for 1989, and just being like, "I don't know what," you know. But it still made me. Sometimes it made me laugh just with how weird it was and how dark it could be. Um, Cartoons were a big inspiration too. Just in general. Far Side was great for comics, and like I do a gag comic now, but cartoons as a kid really fueled my imagination, my big desire to draw. A lot early Nickelodeon, which was Doug, Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, Rocco's Modern Life. I feel like there's a 5th one I'm not forgetting. I mean, Klasky Csupo, who did Rugrats, did a whole bunch more. It was around like Rocket Power where I sort of left the Nickelodeon zone and went to Cartoon Network. But I always enjoyed cartoons and always watching cartoons and just being very like interested in where the medium was being pushed. Like Cartoon Network at the time was just started pushing it more with Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo, Cow and Chicken. And it kept going and going. And I still love cartoons these days. I'm very critical of them, but I do enjoy watching them when they're good. Animation in general, but that's a different conversation about like is animation only for kids? What's adult animation look like? Everyone just says Simpsons or Family Guy, which is boring. But I love cartoons nonetheless. I love the boring ones. I love the stupid ones. I love the bad drawn ones. They're interesting. It's all good to look at. Comic wise, Garfield was a big one. Like I read newspaper strips. So like Garfield, Far Side, anything that was in the newspaper, I was interested in reading, but those are the two main ones I can remember. And then like I had a different layer, a different shoot off when I discovered indie comics and comics in general. Like I knew of Batman and stuff, but I never read the comics until I found a good comic book store that sold like The Killing Joke, The Long Halloween, All Star Superman, excuse me. Um, and like the classics, the story, like the one shot stories that are just very like this encompasses a new aspect of Clark Kent or Batman as a character, which is very interesting and cool. But I couldn't be bothered to like follow the day-to-day floppies and shit like that. Like nowadays, I really don't. Who has the time? I get a little inspiration from everything, but definitely those are a big start. All I've mentioned so far.
Well, I mean, speaking of Cartoon Network, this is just something that I've been meaning to ask. What was it like writing an episode of Adventure Time?
Very stressful because I love Adventure Time. I'm rewatching it right now. I have the DVD, like the entirety on a huge package. And after watching Fiona and Cake, which is great, I was like, I gotta double check. I gotta remember if I still love this, and I do. I'm like near season 3, and it's still very good. I love that the show let itself grow up with everyone else, with Finn, and I was very honored. But when I was in the moment, actually doing the work, I was like, ah, this is tough because like I love the show and the work and trying to work within something you love can be a weird tightrope because some people will exploit that. I'm not saying Cartoon Network did that, but a lot of cartoon places and stuff will be like, "You love this shit, right? You should come work for us then for peanuts." Cartoon Network didn't do that. They were very, let's say, the adult the Adventure Time folks did not do that. They were very lovely and very helpful and all that stuff. And I loved the board my board partner, though I just didn't really know what to do. But it was also kind of like, well, you're just drawing a story, you're drawing a comic. It was very simple, but I don't know. As I was doing it, I felt very in my own head about how much work I'm doing and how much things I'm putting in here. So they asked me to not only storyboard and write half of the episode with my board partner, but also like revise my boards, which is basically redrawing it again to make it look clear and stuff, which is should be a separate job, but they've kind of condensed a lot of jobs. That's not Adventure Time's fault. That's the industry. Um, but I was like, can I not do that? Can you get someone else to do that part for me? Because I don't want to do that. And they were like, yeah, sure, whatever. I get paid less, but that's fine. It was just a freelance gig anyway. Um, so I feel honored to do that, but it is hard for me to look at that episode a little bit because I see a lot of the flaws, things I would have done differently and shit like that. If you like it, thanks. If you don't, hey, me neither. Thankfully, it's only one episode. You can skip it.
It's funny you mentioned that thing about the show growing up with you because I was like probably a year too young as it aired.
Mhm.
And so I remember around like the 4th season, I was like, this is boring. There's no fun anymore. It's all just romance. And obviously now I like liking it a lot more.
It really is funny to see it go from super fun to like Finn being like, what is a woman? And trying to understand himself and all that shit. Like he just had the episode where he tried to ask someone out, he tried to ask PB out to go to just to see a movie. And like everyone's trying to get him to like romance her, and he's like, I just want to go see a movie. Ends up going with Marceline, and they both like, hey, this sucks. Let's leave. Like pukes immediately as everyone's kissing. um yeah, I get that, but it's very interesting that they were given the freedom to like explore that shit. And I love some of those episodes in the later seasons. Fiona and Cake is an excellent miniseries, straight up.
Yeah. All right, back to the pre-written questions here. This one is from Brad. This is probably the silliest, but also the most important in a way. How does it feel having your work immortalized as a part of the Fortnite cinematic universe?
That'll be the day, huh? When Fortnite gets its own movie. Hey, everyone get in here, and then it's all the Fortnite skins coming in here to give me a happy birthday party. Um, it feels like nothing. I'm glad they contacted me and paid me for its use because I remember they had issues with that with the Carlton dance. I forget the man's name. Alberto starts with an R. Carlton from
Yeah.
Fresh Prince. Excuse me. But I guess they've been better about that since. And they've added like everything, like Star Wars, Rick and Morty, Futurama. And it's nice. It's fine. It's nice. I have no my opinion kind of changes with this is fine stuff more often than not. Like I was never super into Fortnite, and looking at it now when I tried playing it when it first came out, I'm like, well, this is a completely different game. They added so much shit. So I don't even bother. But it's nice. It's interesting. Like I'm as I get older, I'm still sort of trying to get used to the idea that that this thing is much bigger than me. Like only now am I really trying to like license it out to certain places instead of just letting people bootleg it over and over again. So at least I have some control over that, you know? And I don't mind doing that. Like people ask me for licenses all the time, not just Fortnite, but like smaller companies who want to make a work retreat shirt that's just like for for creative for bonding between workers or whatever at a back retreat. And I'm like, oh, okay, can you pay me this much for a licensing fee? Yes, no, sliding scale. I don't care. I just want to be seen as a working artist in this industry, and that is harder and harder these days. I gotta say, if that's what you're looking to do as artists, I don't know what you're in college for, but it's difficult. It's difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult.
It's
Yeah,
really funny. No, you go.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm currently right now going to school for art at FSU, and it's definitely an interesting thing, like starting college before like a lot of the industry started falling apart, and then as I'm in the middle of like actually getting into it, everything is falling apart. It's fun.
It's weird. It's fun. Like it's different. All the things I learned in 2000, like putting my work online and stuff, doesn't really work the same way now. Um, what does kind of help is learning a little bit of the things around your art. Like if you're self-motivated enough to keep drawing comics, to keep doing live drawing, whatever it is that your passion is, I feel like it behooves you more to learn how to say screen print, how to use Photoshop and InDesign and stuff like that. Um, how to lay out a book or whatever. Like the obviously InDesign will help you do that, but like I was even showed how they used to do it, which is like they actually like print out little things and pasted it on like a huge board or whatever, and they're like, then they just print this. And I'm like, well, that sucks. I'm glad we don't have to do that anymore. My teacher said we don't, and threw away the board.
Sweet.
But just those little things, the things around the thing you love to do, that's worth learning. Screen printing, printing in general, I think will help because everyone's online right now, and you don't really need to learn how to separate colors and shit like that because a lot of print on demand shirt stuff is or items and stuff are very simple and easy. But I think it helps to know where like how the original stuff came from, so you can figure out like problems or different ways of doing it, and it's good to be a problem solver in your own given work in your own given field because you're going to need a lot of help to like solve little things that maybe people don't know, or like old Yahoo answers stuffs are just gone, or shit like that.
Yeah.
So I have like an associate's in graphic design, which is like the lowest tier of whatever. And I was like, I didn't even need it, but my mother was very adamant about me at least finishing because they were paying for it, which is like okay. But I learned a lot more doing graphic design than I ever did taking like art history or color theory. But I wish I paid attention. I was just full of myself when I didn't pay attention. Like I enjoy graphic design and stuff, but now in my 30s, I'm like, shit, I wish I knew color theory a little more. But hey, guess what? Wikipedia is still there, and there are a lot of good stuffs out there. People will teach you, will do YouTube videos about color theory, so it's still there. And I like fucking around and finding out.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And for the color theory, Marco Bucci all the way. His YouTube
Mhm.
channel is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I love about like YouTube and those old sites like Yahoo Answers and stuff like that. You can find people just explaining the little things to you out there, um, and that is helpful in just learning the basics. But a lot of it just has to be like on you to apply them and see what happens and see what you like as an artist.
It's what I was going to mention, and this is about just related to like that whole thing about the hound taking on a life of his own.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw, but this morning someone accidentally generated a one-to-one copy of that panel using AI by typing in like dog, flame, fine, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, people like snitch tagged me on Twitter about it, this and that, and I'm just like, I can tell the difference. You're gonna have, I don't care. Like, I'm sorry, like the AI stuff, the NFT stuff, a lot of that stuff is a lot of hot air, in my opinion. I think AI could be interesting as a tool, but no one wants to use it as just a tool. They want to use it as only this and only that. And maybe it is interesting that that's the closest I've seen AI get to my style, but I can still tell. I can still tell that it's not. There are little things, but it's there. And I have an eye for my own work. I have an eye for everyone's work. If you're an artist and you pay attention enough, you can be like, yeah, that is fake, or that is AI, or that is this. And that's just going to become more prevalent and necessary to suss out as people start using it in less insidious ways than just regenerating a meme from the beginning or whatever. And my stuff's pretty malleable and simple to begin with, and that on purpose. I like drawing like that, so that doesn't surprise me that it's there. That doesn't make me sad or scared. It doesn't make me feel anything. I've seen several versions of the dog meme, drawn by several different artists over the years. Um, a lot of different artists. Let's just not say several. A lot of different artists. I've seen it a lot, and I'm just only rarely does one ever make like go, oh, that's cute, or that's interesting. AI one is just, it's trying to get me into a conversation I don't care to have. I
No,
just mute.
that's
I mute, block, whatever. I don't give a shit. My time is worth more than talking to assholes on a dying website.
well, I've got one
Except you
more.
guys. I love talking to you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Nah, I'm just fucking.
I've got one more pre-written question. I wanted to end it on a good one with real academic meaning to it.
Mhm.
This is from Casper. Is there a difference between writing comedy in the short form, like strips or one panels, versus the long form in narrative works like graphic novels or webcomics?
Yes, one takes a lot longer. Um, I mean that's the short answer. The long answer is because you can make more character based jokes with a character that is more uh, uh, uh understood over several years. Like after you work with characters that you've created for 10 years, maybe it's easier to for them to be like, how would they interact with, say, a weird dog coming out and saying, "Hi, I'm a weird dog. Can I help you?" And then as you have your characters now have to deal with a weird dog that can talk. But those characters, so it's like you can put them in that situation if you want to. Just an example. It can be more grounded if you're doing a more grounded strip or whatever like that. And you have a chance to tell a longer story too, that you can't really with like the like a one panel comic, gag comic, or a strip, or like a lot of the single panel or one single page gag comics I did in Gun Show and stuff like that. So you get a lot more room to grow more interesting ways to grow with a long form, like slice of life strip or a long form story that you're not going to get in anything else, that you're not going to get in a gag strip of any kind. But what I love about doing gag strips and stuff through gun shows, stuff through my gag strip now, God's Hands, it is it is also about what you don't show. It's about what you imply through certain things that can just be as interesting and as funny about, like, say, Achewood. You know, you have it having such well-defined characters to play with that he can make blog posts in Ray's voice and Theodore's voice, etc. But there's also like there's some fun in just being like, I have this one little idea. I don't know how to put this with my characters, but there's got to be a way of just showing it or showing like a peek behind the curtain, you know, of this like bigger idea, and that can be itself be funny, interesting, or whatever. I love doing that in gun show, and that goes hand in hand with like a lot of horror too. When you don't show a lot in horror, or else you like it's not that scary anymore. Like a lot of people cite the Babadook, which is like I enjoyed the movie, but it's like when you see it's just a guy in a hat, everyone goes, "Oh, just a guy in a hat," and it's like, okay, well that's not the main point of the story, but okay, I get you. It is just a guy in a hat. Okay. Um, uh, it's fun to play with what you don't show and letting the audience sort of fill in the gaps. It's a fun way to play with the audience and to find out if the audience wants to play back with you. A lot of times people just want to see Garfield go, I love cookies. I think I saw Garfield strip that he said, like, it's the little joys. Yeah, no, I remember it verbatim. He goes, it's the little joys. It's a little cookie and he eats it. But he's in the last panel is, but it's also the big joys and it's a big cookie. And he's about to eat that big cookie. Oh boy. Whatever. But some people, sometimes that's all people want. That's all people need. I can get up, I can get fucking snooty and look my nose down at Garfield, but he's the one who has he's the one whose character is in a fighting game right now. The Nickelodeon All Stars, Nicktoons All Stars fighting game. He plays Garfield. It just depends on what you want. Yeah, you as the creator want to show, and there are so many ways to doing it. You just have to pick one and try. A lot of this is just trial by error, and you're going to have to fail a lot or get lucky the first time, and then suddenly everyone's eyes are on you, and now you have to live up to that. Whichever comes first. One is definitely offers something. Both offer something different to both sides of my brain. I loved making a longer story like He Is a Good Boy, which was about an acorn who didn't want to grow up from his tree. But I made it a little episodic where he would just deal with little small horrors in the bug world. But then it had an overarching plot that ended up like, ending in a way I was like, okay, good. That's nice to stick that landing. Or when I wrote back my weird Western that I wrote, and my friend Anthony Clark from Nedroid is the colorist on Dr. McNinja. I'm trying to pull some like old school webcomic stuff if anyone remembers. He drew for me, and that was a fun one to work together, but also tough because I had to write, it became like homework. I had to like write the nicest story or like a story script well enough for Anthony to be like, okay, now can you please do this? And Anthony, I loved seeing what he came up with because I trusted him also. So it was fun to work with him, but it's also a different way of being like, you have to leave some control. You have to give up some control. Um, yeah, it's there's so many different things, but they all work. They can all come from the same brain if you try. Whatever you want to do, a strip or a long form story, attempt it. It's fun to find out.
Well, this actually just now popped fresh into my mind. There's been a huge shift in webcomics in the past like 5-ish years,
Yeah.
from like self-hosted stuff to
Mhm.
webtoons, and you've kind of made that transition expertly. So do you think there's like, what do you think the big difference is?
Well, it's not just webtoons. Although I always I used to use a free hosting site before I had my own. Also, it was an older site that might still be around. It used to be called Drunk Duck,
I
which was
think
a
that is
similar.
around, yeah.
Yeah, it's just called the Duck now. I believe they just got rid of the drunk part, but it was a similar like upload a thing, put a little blog, boom, you're done. And the simplicity of that was very simple and nice when all I wanted, and a lot of people just wanted to make their comic. But then like you'd think you'd have to graduate from that. This was like in 2005, 06, when it was like you have to graduate from that and get your own website and learn PHP and figure out what an RSS reader is and all that stuff that just doesn't exist anymore. RSS, I guess, is still a thing, but like any RSS reader doesn't exist. Google Reader, Dig, any of those things, and no one and only and people only use the same 5 websites. It's a lot of cartoons. Myself, a lot of cartoons and cartoonists, myself included, we're like we have to go to social media. Whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Tumblr, if people still use that. I don't know. You still use
I
Tumblr?
do
Okay. All
love
right.
Tumblr.
I still use Tumblr as well. I don't mind it, but I also recognize that it's very low on
Yeah.
on a lot of people's priority. People are like, Tumblr's still around.
Mm.
Um, Instagram is I think is pretty big for comics now. Long form not so much, but sometimes yes. Like sometimes a long form one does work out. Like Simon Hanselman's Meg Mog and Owl. They did Crisis Zone during 2020. That was a hit. That was an Instagram hit. Um, it's weird because I don't know what to do other than just follow where I think people are going. Especially now that like Elon is fucking up Twitter/X. Like that's burning to the ground. Blue Sky is kind of nice, but a little. Eh. So I'm just posting where I can, but I'm also wondering if it matters. I'm still posting my work. Patreon is nice because the people who give a shit will directly support me. But I have years of showing that I also give a shit and also do the work where people are like, okay, yeah, I'll give them $3 a month, and I do that. Like I update as much as I can, at least once a day if I'm like on a roll. I did one yesterday, not today because I've been busy talking to folks. I had meetings all day. Um, but like what the future is, I don't know. Like the most you can do is just sort of you kind of got to just follow it. Like it stinks, but like if you want to post stuff and just be relevant, you kind of have to go where people's minds are going to. And so if they're still on Twitter, if they're still on Blue Sky, Tumblr, Facebook, whatever, it doesn't hurt to just keep doing that. Or else maybe it's more like you have to work in silent on your one thing and then just post it all at once and like a big post, and maybe that goes around somewhere. It can happen, I don't know. It's very easy to publish a little like mini comic, like a PDF of like a small thing. I feel like that's kind of an interesting way of going because people like, especially for longer projects, people like waiting for it to be finished to read it all at once. I hear that a lot when I did longer stuff like Pinocchio or He Is a Good Boy, whatever. People were like, yeah, I'm waiting for the book as I'm like in the middle of updating it and doing like page after page. I'm just like, you haven't been reading it then? Because that's the one thing I also remembered I liked about doing comics online is the reaction, the give and take of me and then the audience. And that's why I kind of like pared it down to just doing a gag strip, which is like it's fun. It's like writing a funny Twitter post, but I can actually make it funnier by putting art to it, showing images and things like that. Um, I do not know what it's going to look like in 5 years. You know, like 10 years ago, it was like all those motherfuckers wrote the book on it, how to make a web comic. Most of those people now are doing like a D&D podcast. I am too. Um, or moved on to a different web comic or licensing this and that. I don't know. Like it's you're the road's going to be different for everybody. But I wish it wasn't. I wish it was more
Stable.
stable. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I like how Japan's comic system, and it's nowhere perfect, but like they seem to have like they do have a webcomic place to like publish webcomics like Pop Team Epic or something else than a third option. I don't know. But like they do post it, they have a website, and then they collect it, and then if it becomes a series, it becomes a series. And they have an industry for that kind of stuff, and that has its amazing problems in its own way, where it kills authors. It like drives authors to the brink of death a lot closer than they should. But it still is like, well, they still are making the comics are still happening, and they still give a shit. I'm sure there's an indie comic scene there too that is probably difficult to leave from one to the other, but it feels like there's something at least there to try and aspire to. Whereas for webcomic people, I don't know. Webtoon is probably the closest you got, and hopefully it gets viral on Webtoon, and you can get there are plenty of Webtoon success stories. Check Please, I believe that's one. Laura Olympus, I see all the time, and I'm just like, damn, all right, good for her. Um, uh, that's it. That's all I can think of. But like, I'm still trying to figure out ways of doing it now. I'm lucky enough to have a cooked in audience who's willing to help me and follow me, and Patreon has helped a lot, and like keeping something local. That just feels like a regular old blog posting website where I can be like, here's this new comic, here's this new comic, here's an update, I'm going away, etc. But it's that's me. It's going to be different for any other person who's doing it, who's like maybe working on selling their big YA novel that'll do like amazing, and they'll get like residuals forever. Hopefully, I'm not working like YA is too saturated with all that stuff, but it's also the biggest market I'm noticing right now, along with manga. um, the end.
Nice.
I forget the rest of that question. Sorry.
No, it was just like, I mean, you covered all the bases. It was just like, what are the differences, you know?
There's so many, and it's always going to change. So you just have to willing to change with it, or be so steady, so against it, and but steady in your own way that people have to come and find you. You know, that's the other way of being online, is you have to make stuff so amazing and cool that people have to come and find you. And just having that, like a steady website or something that's like, yeah, I updated. Here's this. Here's that. You probably don't have to learn PHP if you don't want to, thankfully. But maybe it doesn't hurt.
All right. Well, there any more questions on your end, Hannah? Anything you want to ask?
Yeah, actually there is. This is probably going back to when you were talking about working at Cartoon Network, but I wanted to ask, what's the difference between working on something by yourself versus working like a studio, like a group of people for yourself? Like, what are the benefits and what are some things that you have to like struggle with when you're doing that?
Uh, well, I never worked directly in a studio space with the Cartoon Network folks. It was a freelance gig that I still took. That I like I had Zoom meetings and stuff over them and whatnot. But otherwise, I was kind of left to myself to make my part, and then we'd go back and then have a Zoom meeting, like talking board meeting or whatever, and do that. But that like working with yourself with others is it's just a different headspace you have to be capable of. Like I like working kind of by myself, but as the pandemic sort of happened, I was like, shit, it's lonely to do that. And I had already done it for most of my life, just saying, no, I'm gonna stay home, guys, and do my own thing. I'll see you later. I was practicing my whole thing while that was happening. But then when it was kind of taken away from me and taken away from everybody in the pandemic, I was like, fuck, I miss that. I miss that the little bits of human connection. And so working, and not just with seeing people at like a bar or something, but like also working. with people in certain capacities, seeing my peers, seeing other cartoonists at like conventions and shows and whatnot. So I find that as a solitary practice that cartooning and drawing can be, it does let you like have full control over that stuff, which is like, if you want that, hey, you got it. But there's something fun about like letting go of that kind of control and like seeing what someone else can make and trusting that person to make something good, and hopefully them trusting you in return. And that can really depend on a lot of different people. Like between me and Anthony doing back, I was writing, he was drawing. um i tried to be very I tried to be as descriptive as I could in doing my scripts, but only Anthony ever saw them. So I was basically just talking to him, just being like, "Hey, I'm gonna do my scripts this way. It's very simple, but I'll make sure you understand it. But I want you to do it however you want to do it because I trust Anthony." And every time he did it, I was, tickled pink because I got to see Anthony, try his hand at a different, panel structure, vibe, or whatever. Um, or he added like a little joke himself. Um, and if I needed a change, it was usually something that's like, no, that was a little off. It was usually more of like a story thing, not really like I didn't think that was funny. It was more like no, it should actually be here. So when the turn comes in the next panel or page or whatever, and that was an easy fix. That was more of a professional fix than like a personal thing. Because like whenever Anthony gave me something, I was like, I'm blessed every day that Anthony like worked beside me to do this. But that was that. And Anthony's a pretty easygoing guy. As long as I've known him, he's he can crank it out pretty good. And he's living the most normal life I've ever seen. Just being a house guy, just being a house husband, just being happy with a dog and family. Um, but also like working with other people, more than one person, you can butt like ids, egos, and stuff like that. You just have to be aware of your own faults, and I mean a lot of that is internal stuff that I've like worked on my whole life of being like, I can be a stubborn man and I can get shitty when I'm hungry, so try to be open and make sure to eat. you know um and that's not always going to be the same for whoever else you're working with, but that's life, as my therapist is telling me. That is life, that you just sort of have to like learn to be like, ooh, they're a little, ooh. And you might have to make a executive decision to just sort of deal with it and be ready to like, you know if it sucks, fucking bounce. Shit sucks, hit the bricks. As the share zone has told us many over and over again. Um, like I only now in like I said, my mid 30s, am I really sort of figuring that out myself. Working with other people, I am working with three other friends to make a D&D podcast, which is a popular format. But it's like, I like D&D. I want to play D&D more. If I have to record it and be on a podcast, okay, I'll just. I realized early on to not monetize. I realized too late that I monetized too much of my hobbies. So while this does feel like a hobby I am monetizing, I am trying to like at least be a little hands off in how everyone else is presenting it. Like we have people editing it, adding music. I'm just a character who's playing in the thing, so I don't have any say in like where the story's going. That's the game master doing all that and stuff like that. But I'm just there to play along, which is like up front. I tell them I'm just here to play along. I'm gonna make you guys laugh, as in the players and stuff like that. The fact that we're being recorded and stuff just means I'm not. I'm gonna be a little bit careful about my words, which isn't the worst thing in day-to-day public conversations anyway. But like we're making it work. It's an interesting thing to work with other people, and it can be different. It can be tough out there because everyone wants a PC. Everyone will want a piece of you. You just have you are in charge of how much they get. Never forget that.
All
Pet my
right.
cat now.
Well, if that's everything, and if it's not everything, then any, there's, I guess, one like capstone question.
Mhm.
This is the comic book club. What's your favorite superhero? What superheroes do you like?
Now, as a kid, I really liked the Superman cartoon series. Um, Mostly because I was trying to be like everyone loved the Batman series. So I was trying to be like, well, I like the Superman series. But actually going back and, really seeing the Bruce Timm Batman and the Paul Dini stuff, and I was like, oh wait, this is actually unequivocally a very good animated series. Like that version of Batman and then all four of those seasons of the original animated series is very, very good. Very, very uh, atmospheric, done well, directed well, animated great at times. I don't know if I'd say he's my favorite, but Batman is such an interesting, simple hero because he's just a detective. He's just a detective with a lot of gadgets. Um, and and any superhero is going to be only going to be as good as their rogues gallery. And I can't name you a lot of rogues galleries for Superman. Lex Luthor, Brainiac, I guess. Although that new Superman show on Adult Swim's pretty cute. My Adventures with Superman. I've only seen a couple episodes, but I mean, who doesn't love all the rogues gallery of Batman? Joker, Harley Quinn, Mad Hatter, Riddler, the classics. Um, so I guess the boring answer is going to have to be Batman if I had to. Although I've only read like Batman's like as American as apple pie in a way. Like his story, his history. So I've only read like some of the bigger stories, like Long Halloween or the one Alan Moore did. Uh, I forget what it's called. It's the one where Joker uh, threw Barbara down the stairs,
Yeah,
like
the
in
killing joke.
the Killing Joke. Thank you. Um, and I played all the Arkham Asylum games, so I know too much about Batman through like those little things and whatnot. Um, yeah, I mean that's the closest I got. I mean, Watchmen's pretty good as a antithetical thing to all that stuff, but I wouldn't say any of those are my favorite superheroes. I wouldn't say Rorschach's my favorite guy, but he is very
Oh,
interesting. Yeah, I guess my boring answer is gonna have to be Batman.
Yeah.
I don't have a deeper pull. I'm sorry.
that's
He's ju-
fine. Join the club.
yeah, I mean, he's just so like you can put him in anything. All
Yeah.
the different Batmans where he's still stoic, but he's paired up with say Plastic Man or someone else, or whatever. I think that's just fun.
Yeah. All right. Any last words? Any parting wisdom?
Any
Uh,
recommendations?
Any recommendations? Yeah. Any
sure.
newer comics you want to
Um,
spotlight?
you ever heard of One Piece? Okay, me and some friends during the pandemic again started like a little book club where we talked about different manga, and we had the Shonen Jump app, which was like $2 a month. And we were reading all of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. And we were like, man, we should just try and read all of One Piece. We had fun with Dragon Ball and all that stuff. And Dragon Ball is fun when you go back and just read it and you're like, oh, he's just having fun too. Like Kira Toriyama is just making shit up as he goes. He's just having a good time. One Piece is kind of like that too, but it doesn't really come together too much as a story until like 100 or maybe 400 chapters in, which is real fucked to say to someone to be like, just wait till chapter 398. It'll kicks off then. But honestly, when I got to that point in the story, when I was reading it with some friends, I was like, oh, shit's going. I was actually excited. Me and some friends decided to like do it little by little, incremental. So we took like 2 chapters a week. We would talk about it. We would read it and stuff like this, and we would we kept with that for like a year and a half or so. I'm caught up. I'm already where I know what's happening next. Although I am kind of bored with it. I like that. There's my comic book fan. Is like he's going into no more backstory for more characters, while like something bigger is happening, and he's getting close to ending it too. And it's like, just get to the fireworks factory already, you know. And I have my theories and whatnot, but it's good. Manga kicks ass. I gotta say, Berserk, One Piece, Junji Ito, Pluto, by Naoki Urasawa. That's coming out. Like the anime of that is coming out on Netflix, but the manga is excellent. It's a redone Astro Boy story as a neo noir fucking thriller. It kicks ass. um, Manga kicks ass. Stick with black and white in doing comics. Colors for chumps. If you're gonna make a long story, just make it black and white. Therefore you won't kill yourself like making all these pages over and over again. I know that seems antithetical to everything that's online, but push against it because fuck that shit. You're gonna hurt your hand. You're gonna die at a younger age because you're just coloring pages and pages. Or if you can get a friend to do it, let them do it. I don't know. I did a full color big long story and I was like, I got nothing out of it. I feel better when I can just make the comic in my own way, black and white, and just be happy that I'm getting it out. And some of my favorite comics, Berserk, One Piece, all that shit, all in black and white, very popular. One Piece is huge. It's gonna have a Thanksgiving Macy's Day float. I don't know.
No, I do want to, and I promise you won't care about this at all, but I just feel the need to say that our college is screening Rocky Horror Picture Show in about 3 days, and somewhere on campus is hidden a One Piece, which is a VIP ticket because the line is usually 3 hours long. So there's been a month-long scavenger hunt to find the One Piece, and
Do you
everyone's
have
going crazy.
do you have like clues as to where it could be?
Yeah, there have been clues. The guy who made it has been making all this go to events that like he's helping his friends host just so that he can like drop the hints. It's this whole thing. We've spent so long trying to find it.
I guess Rocky Horror is worth watching in a theater if you have to watch it at all. The only time I watched it was in a living room of some family I didn't really know, while the dad who loved it when he was younger was like, this is the part where they would snap the gloves and then you'd throw spoons at this part while not throwing spoons or snapping gloves, just telling me about it. And I'm like, that's great, man. I'm trying to listen to the movie. I don't remember anything about that fucking movie. Good luck. Good luck finding it.
Thank you.
Don't think any of us will.
Not with that attitude. Luffy wouldn't give up. Luffy wouldn't give up.
Fuck, you're right. Fuck, you're right.
All right.
Yeah.
And that is the end of the Q&A. Thank you again for showing up.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
It's
having me.
been fun and educational, and you have a very good podcasting voice.
Thank you. I've been working on it because I literally have been talking, I have this set up and, we're officially recording some dumb things for D&D. But thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Yay.
Yay.
What do we